If I Should Die by Donevy Westphal. Available through Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and other retailers.
Finally, there she is, but someone is always with her. Why does she have that lowlife Marsh kid with her? Disgust rose in his throat and threatened to choke him. And who is that fellow she's with now? That other blonde jerk with his mother, but someone else has taken his place. I don't know who. He leaned farther forward, frowned and glared at them as the charcoal gray car drove away. Why? Why? With an angry jerk, he shoved his car into gear and drove toward home. So where have you been? Pining over that O'Brien girl again? The older man scowled and cursed as the young man slammed into the house. The young man's eyes narrowed. Leave me alone, he answered, glaring at the man. Them O'Briens, or women, have been a particular pain for far too long. You pine over her, you know she's not for you. Just forget her, he cursed again. I told you to get rid of them two women long ago. You only did half the job. Get rid of her. His voice became a primeval growl. And I told you to leave me alone, the younger man glared in return. Chapter 17. Just follow Michael up that drive there, Ruth said. Our Sunday potlucks are on a revolving schedule. Julius, Ruth, and Billy were the last to pull up the driveway at the Coles country cottage, where the potluck was being held that Sunday. Joe had the grill warmed up, and the tantalizing aroma of barbecue floated on the breeze. Man, does that smell good, Julius exclaimed as he parked. Ruth hopped out of his passenger seat. I'll be back, she said, and hurried off. Julius rolled down the windows and turned off the car. He turned to look at Billy in the back seat. My stomach is rubbing against my backbone. How about you? The detective wanted to use the turmoil in the boy's blue-gray eyes. Julius retrieved a box of donuts from the back seat beside Billy. He took one and offered the box to the boy. Billy eyed the donuts, hesitating. Suit yourself, Julius said, but when I was in the military, I learned to eat when I had a chance. Don't always know when another opportunity would come along. Julius bit into a chocolate-filled jelly-filled donut. At the word military, Billy's face lit up. You were a soldier, mister? I was a Marine, 4 whole years, Julius said. Billy selected a donut. You're older than my dad, he spoke around a mouthful of cream filling. Is that so? Julius finished chewing and took another bite. My dad was in the army. Billy sat up a bit taller, his face shining with pride. Then the light faded out of his face. But sometimes it makes him forget Mom and me and Molly and the baby. Julius forced his last bite of donut down and wrapped his last half of donut in a napkin, leaving it in the ashtray. For some reason, he was full. Ruth poked her head in through the open car window and looked at Billy. After we have a prayer, we'll go take care of your mama. She opened the door and Billy jumped out. If she has to go to the hospital, you children can spend the day with Lewis. Do you think Brother Paul and the Hydes will be back soon from taking Mrs. Marsh to the hospital? Julius bent down to pick up a stray styrofoam cup as they cleaned up from the potluck. It's hard to say. They might keep her overnight. Lewis sat down, a large dish swathed in padding. By the way, I've been meaning to tell you, I have an old plat book at home. It shows who owns the land and who lives where. That might help navigate the countryside for your book writing assignment. Great. You going straight home? I'll follow you and pick it up. Julius stopped at the end of Lewis's driveway and studied the newly acquired plat book before pulling onto the road. He traced the road with his forefinger around to the south and west and read the names from the book. Pat and Priscilla O'Brien, and further around here, Sean and Genevieve O'Brien, and a grade B road right here. How convenient. Back around on this mile is listed under Jack and Diana O'Brien, where Ruth, her mother, and brother lived. Julius folded the plat book into the console and slid the car into gear. He stopped in front of the O'Brien house he had visited the day before. Like a painting you've seen at too close quarters, it helped to back up and get a distant look. A 2-story farmhouse with fresh white paint and green trim at the windows gave it a charming look. The crisp gingerbread doodles curled around the eaves and embellished the porch. However, that didn't disguise the fact that no one lived there. The neat lawn inside the picket fence emphasized the appearance of a monument marker. He put the car in gear and drove on. The field on the north of the Grade B road is listed under O'Brien, but right next to it is a parcel listed under Meacham. Julius followed a convoluted route first north and then further west, where the name in the book read David Meacham. He stopped about a fourth of a mile short from the house and slipped into the cover of the trees and bushes along the road and between the fence rows. He pulled out his binoculars and did a once-over of the area. Meacham's house sat on a swell of land across a field of young corn. There was a cut of land where a dry creek bed ran catty-cornered, taking a jog around between the corn and pasture in back of the house. Julius took special note of the house and outbuildings and several vehicles that came and left. Not glamorous work, but necessary for laying out a plan. Better than the exciting side that it consisted of being shot at or attacked. That possibility came tomorrow, Monday. After evening church service, Julius followed Lewis out the door to the parking lot. "Thanks for lending me that plat book. How's Mrs. Marsh doing?" "They're rehydrating Mrs. Marsh and getting some nutrients back into her system," Lewis said. "They should be getting back soon, and we'll take the kids back later." Michael leaned against the hood of his car. "Mom and Ruth and I will stop by the Marshes to see if they're home." "You going back to the house soon?" Julius called to Michael. "The ladies have been cleaning up at the Marshes this afternoon, so this shouldn't take long." "Well, I'm heading back to my room," Julius said. Julius swung down from the roof and climbed back in the west window on his room. He just finished writing a small disc into place. He just finished wiring his small disc into place when Michael puttered up the drive. It had been intense a few moments ago as he pushed to get things hooked up, but in spite of the interruptions, his base had become established. "Okay," he spoke into his phone. "It's up. How's my reception?" "Good, and good," the voice on the other end said. "We'll get those pictures out to you shortly in contacts." "I'm ready." Julius folded his gear away and stashed it back in its case. With a sigh, he glanced at his watch. "Need a break." "Ow, I don't remember ever being this sore after horseback riding in my life," Julius groaned and stretched his aching muscles. He eased down the stairs and through the breezeway. Mrs. McDonald sorted laundry as he passed. "Help yourself to the coffee pot. We should have some rolls to go with it," she said. "You must have read my mind." Julius moved slowly through the laundry room. "Are you up to throwing bales tomorrow?" Michael laughed as Julius jumped into the sunroom. "Tomorrow I meet some of the residents at the retirement center." "Mom does the retirement center after lunch at 2 o'clock. Throwing bales won't take over a couple hours in the morning." "I've used muscles this week I forgot I had. Throwing bales should finish me off." Ruth came in with a plate of old-fashioned cinnamon rolls. "Say, Georgie Porgy, Michael and I usually ride on Sunday evenings, but he has to write some letters. You up for a horseback ride?" Julius groaned. "Don't you guys ever stop?" "It's the only solution to ease the pain," Ruth smiled as she handed out rolls and plates. "I do need to write letters. After we polish off these cinnamon rolls, we can saddle those fat, lazy horses while Ruth changes into her riding gear." Michael popped a bite into his mouth. Julius and Ruth loped the horses across the pasture and stopped at the farm drive. "Grade B road like that one," she pointed to the road in back of her mother's house, "is a fancy name for a dirt road," Ruth said. "There are a number of them. That's where we do most of our riding. Lead up that way along the shoulder of the road and then go right on to the next Grade B." She motioned with her riding quirt. The horses were eager to go, and once they reached the Grade B road, they galloped with abandon, savoring their freedom. The riders enjoyed their own private world as the trees on either side formed a green canopy overhead. The sound of the silver peeper frogs singing, the smell of the growing corn mingling with the fresh-cut hay in the early evening created a dreamlike charm. You're quite an accomplished rider, Julius said as the horses slowed, content at last to step along side by side.